and get ready to climb the corporate ladder. Our club organizes formal training events like group discussions and corporate training workshops. We aim at fostering growth and bringing about a positive change in the society. Today's session, Beyond Clicks, Nurturing the Critical Thinking in the Digital Era, is exploring the importance of critical thinking in navigating the digital age. We are all set to challenge the conventional thinking in the digital landscape.
It gives us immense pleasure to introduce a distinguished guest speaker for the day today, Mr. A.S. Prasad. Sir is renowned for his expertise in critical thinking arena. Mr. Prasad is a visiting faculty at esteemed institutions like IIM Indore, IIM Nagpur, IIM Rohtak, and IIMT Ghaziabad. He teaches and has designed the curriculum for critical thinking at National Institute for Fashion Technology, NIFT. Sir is the founder of Critical Thinking Academy and provides corporate training in critical thinking and has conducted workshops for various companies like Amazon, Dell, HCL Technologies, Cisco, and many more. We extend a warm welcome to you, sir. We would request all the participants to turn on their cameras for a group picture. Guys, please turn on your camera.
Guys, please don't be shy.
Yeah, it would be fun and interactive session. Just turn on your cameras. Is anyone there?
Okay. Doesn't matter. Maybe they are not in a position where they want to turn on the cameras. So I think you can just take it with the names and let's start off.
Yes. Now I request sir to share his thoughts and take the session forward.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Nami, Sejal, and Rishi. Thank you for the intro. I'm just an ordinary guy and I just have a few thoughts to share with you on how to think. At the outset, let me clarify that when I say critical thinking, yes, it's very relevant in the digital age because there's so much of fake news out there. There's so many illegitimate means of persuasion that are being used to convert us into believing things which are not true or persuading us conclusions. It makes you self-sufficient in your own thinking. And you will find yourself, if you start practicing it, you will find yourself relying more and more on your analytical thinking and on your analysis rather than looking for somebody else to tell you that you're right or that you're wrong. You will develop a lot of self-confidence in your own analysis and in your own conclusion. So to that extent, on a personal note, it's extremely important to develop critical thinking so that we are not slaves to somebody else's opinions, so that we are not swayed by others' opinions and we are able to think for ourselves and come to our conclusions and have confidence in those conclusions. So digital age, all the more relevant. That's a topic that you have. But I would just like to clarify that critical thinking, while very relevant in the digital age, it is relevant was relevant and will continue to be relevant for any age. Yes, more so today than ever. So with that, with the starting remarks to kind of bring the topic and what I'm going to talk about into some kind of sync, let me go ahead and dive into it. Critical thinking is a fairly vast subject. Okay, I do 30-hour courses, still not enough for people to really get, practice all the concepts which are there. So to sit and try to do something in 1 hour is obviously extremely tough. At the same time, I don't want to give you an introductory session, what it's all about, and do a sales pitch. I want you all to have something that you can carry back with you, that you take with you as that you have some thoughts about critical thinking that you can practice, and that you probably, hopefully, it will hit a chord in your mind, because the concepts are such that once you understand it, then you really don't need to, go and be told again and again. There's nothing to memorize. Some things are such that once you understand, and then you can't learn it, you can't unlearn it. It's there with you. It's like cycling. You learn how to cycle, you can't unlearn it. It's there. You learn swimming, you can't unlearn it. Even if you want to unlearn swimming or cycling, you can't. You jump into the water, you will swim. You take up a cycle, you will have your balance. Okay, so there are some concepts like that, and some of these need a certain amount of practice. So, are you able to see my screen now? Which is, can you confirm whether you can see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I have tried to condense it. I hope to be able to finish in 1 hour. I will go continuously. If you have any questions, just hold your questions and we will take it at the end. After I finish,
I think the screen has stopped for Sir. Can anybody hear him?
No, I think he's facing some network issues.
Yeah.
decision making, problem solving, planning, and strategy. It is a foundational skill, which means that the better I'm at critical thinking,
I'm so
the
sorry
better
to
I will.
interrupt, sir, but you're facing some network issues actually. We aren't
I
able to hear
am.
you properly here.
Okay. Now,
Yeah, it's better now, but in the middle it just keeps hanging.
uh, okay. Let me just check and switch my network connection. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it clear or is it still
Yes, sir,
wavery?
it's clear right now.
Yeah, pause me because I don't know. I mean, supposed to be a very high speed connection, but I suppose they have the moods. Yeah. Is it clear? Is there any lack of clarity now?
Yes, sir, it's clear now.
Okay. So, critical thinking is a foundational skill for decision making, problem solving, planning, and strategy. So, the better you are at critical thinking, the better will you be at making decisions, the better will you be at solving problems, and the better will one be at making plans and strategies. Okay, so it's a foundational skill. The World Economic Forum did a survey in 2020, or as with whole lot many organizations, as to what will be the top skills that will be required of employees over the next 5 years, okay, or next 5 years. So they listed top 10 skills. These are the top 10 skills that the World Economic Forum listed. You will find that critical thinking and analysis is there in as a fourth skill. But the fact is, 7 out of the top 10 skills need critical thinking as a foundation or as integral. Unless you learn critical thinking, we will not be good at 7 of the top 10 skills. So it's a very fundamental skill. For example, if you want to do complex problem solving, we need to be good at critical thinking. If you're not good at critical thinking, we will not be able to do solve will not be able to solve complex problems, right? So 7 of the top 10 skills need critical thinking either as a primary skill by itself or as a foundational skill. So where is the will use critical thinking if you do now or do later, for in group discussions, it goes without saying that you need critical thinking. Okay, so I don't know, maybe in any time you're solving a problem or you're solving something else, you do need we should apply logic, which is reasoning, when we are arriving at a conclusion. So to arrive at conclusions, what to believe, what to do, etc., we need to have clear thinking and we should apply logic. In a very simple way, that is what critical thinking is. It's a simple definition. There are other definitions out there which are runs into several paragraphs. They to try to cover every single aspect that critical thinking is all about. Okay. So there are two elements to critical thinking. Okay, there are two parts to critical thinking. One is how to think critically about an issue, and second is how to think critically. One is how to think critically about an issue, and the second is how to think critically. Now, how to think critically about an issue is something that you've all been doing all throughout a life. Almost everyone is doing. You probably, whatever course that you have decided to take, you probably did some critical thinking about it, deciding which course to take. What are you going to do in future? You're thinking about it, you're weighing options, you're looking at various alternatives, you are thinking about an issue, you are applying critical thinking, you're looking at the pros and cons, you're looking at the benefits and the costs, okay, or maybe you're looking at job opportunities put after doing that. So you are considering various factors, you are thinking, doing critical thinking about an issue. But the question is, are you doing it optimally? Okay, are you really looking at an issue from all its perspectives? Let's say that you take up an issue and your thought Okay, I have been disconnected. I don't know why. Let me just get back. Um, can you see the screen? Yeah,
Yes,
so
sir.
I was saying, yeah, so I was saying that we have learned how to think about an issue by trial and error. So is there some method, some process that tells us how to think about an issue, right? So there is. We can use what is called a critical thinking framework. This is something that I have put in place. I won't say it's completely original. There are variations of this ways of thinking at different points of time, but I have put this together with the specific purpose of doing critical thinking. Okay, so there are, in business schools you'll find case study frameworks which only maybe address some 3 or 4 elements: problem, evidence, analysis, solution. Here we look at everything. Okay, now I will not have the time, we don't have the time now to sit and go into it in depth and dive into it further, but you can still take away a lot from this. If you want, you can take a snapshot of this framework for your reference. Okay, what you can do is every time you're solving any problem or you're making a decision or anything of consequence, you can just check whether there are 3 or 4 things that you're doing. One is, have you considered all the evidence relevant to the problem? Second is, any solution that you're considering, have you looked at the assumptions that you're making when you have arrived at the solution? Have you looked at the implications when you're looking at the solution? Point of view, there are 2 parts. One is, which is that, do you have any bias that has brought you to this conclusion? And second is, are there other stakeholders who have an interest? What is the point of view? Okay, so anytime you're looking at a problem or a solution, just consider, just look at it, what are the assumptions I'm making, what are the implications of the decision, and what could be the points of view, my own bias, and also the other stakeholders, what could be their point of view. So let's take a simple example. Okay, I'm taking very simple example. Typically, I would do a large case study, but here let's do that. Let's say that I'm wondering whether after my undergrad, should I prepare for becoming an IAS officer? Should I write my IAS entrance? Okay. So what do I do? First, I need to collect evidence. What is the relevant evidence in this case? Do I have the aptitude for it? And do I have the interest, one, in the preparation? And second is, do I have the interest in the kind of job that I'm going to be doing if I become an IAS officer? So that's the evidence, which means that I have to research what IAS is all about. I have to research the exam. I have to research who are the kind of people who are getting in. I have to research how many years it takes. I have to collect all the evidence related to writing that entrance. And second, I also have to collect all the evidence related to what it means to be an IAS officer. Okay, because all that is relevant, if I want to become an IAS officer, all that is relevant. So first you collect the evidence with respect to the issue that you're talking. Then let's say that you decide that I'm going to now write the entrance exam, right? There are a lot of assumptions that are behind a decision like that. Assumptions could be that you are obviously preparing because you think that you'll get it. The assumption is that you will like the job, and the assumption is that you will be good at the job once you get it. Okay, and the assumption is that you'll be able to make a career. Okay, and if there are variables, like the assumption is that you'll be quite happy and comfortable working in a bureaucracy. Okay, those are all the assumptions which exist, because all that evidence you collected first when you're first looking at the issue. What are the implications? Let's say that at this stage you have 4 or 5 different career choices, right? The implications are, the moment you've chosen to go after one, okay, the implication is that you have put aside other career choices, right? And let's say that the preparation takes 3 years, there's an opportunity cost. If you say that I'm going to sit at home all the time and I'm going to prepare for IAS, there's an opportunity cost. The opportunity cost is you could be working and you could be earning money, but then because you're sitting at home and preparing, there is an opportunity cost, right? And if you don't get it at the end of 3 years, it becomes an actual cost because the other one has not come in, and you're also given up options of other career choices. Okay, so these are some of the implications. So when you are considering any issue, first ensure that you collect all the evidence relevant to that issue, analyze it, and then once you arrive at a conclusion or a solution if it's a problem, look at the assumptions which are behind that decision or behind that assumption, and look at the implications. Sometimes when you look at the implications, you'll say, nahi, ye nahi karne ka hai. It's too risky, and then you'll come back and change your solution or your decision, right? Similarly, when you look at assumptions, you'll say that some assumptions, oh, these are very big assumptions. Let me see if I can find more data so that assumptions can move from being assumption to I have the data. Okay. So those are some of the things that will happen. So basically, to the extent that you can, try and get this, cover all the angles that are there in this. Okay. So that is how to think about an issue. This is why we are learning critical thinking, is basically because we want to learn how to think critically about issues. But in learning how to think critically about issues itself, there are some elements which is, make sure that you always move from evidence. As a rule, in corporates, I have to do corporate training, I have to training in many places. People do not follow from evidence. They'll quickly come to a conclusion, look for evidence which confirms with what they believe, what they want to do, and they will convince themselves, and then they will go and jump in without looking for all evidence which confirms your view and also which is contradictory to your view. You need to look at both. Okay. So this is how to think about an issue. So this is what you can take home, and you can take a snapshot and keep it with you, because anytime you're looking at a solution, see whether you have considered assumptions, implication, point of view, and whether you've really got all evidence relevant to that issue. Okay. So that is the first part of how to think critically. 2 elements, how to think critically about an issue. Second is how to think critically. Okay. Now, what is the relationship between how to think critically and how to think critically about an issue? What is the connection? The connection between, or relationship between, how to think critically about an issue and how to think critically is the same as between engineering and science. Engineering is nothing but an application of science, okay? Applying science. So the better I am at my basic sciences, the better will I be at engineering. When I say basic sciences, engineering, I'm referring to largely maths, physics, chemistry. I don't know how many of you are in those streams, but I'm just trying to establish a relationship between the two. The better I'm at my sciences, the better I'll be at engineering. So similarly, the better I am at how to think critically, the better will I be on how to think critically about issues. Okay, so that's a relationship, and so that's the reason why we need to learn how to think critically. Now, in how to think critically, there are several elements. If we want to become a good critical thinker, central is logical reasoning. Okay, basically, I need to be good at reasoning logically, right? Then I also need to understand how to evaluate credibility of information, credibility of the claim, the information itself, and the credibility of the source from which the information is coming. I need to understand how to evaluate the credibility of both. Third is my thinking should be clear. Okay. Now, some of you might say, what do you mean? You think my thinking is not clear? I have an excellent vocabulary. I speak the language extremely well. My grammar is very good. Okay. I have a very good command over my language. So, doesn't it mean that I am very good at I'm thinking clear in communication? No, that is not what I mean here when I say clear thinking and communication. I have a couple of slides later. I'll give you a couple of examples how our thinking can lead us away from critical thinking, lack of clarity in our thinking. Okay, so we will look at that. Rhetoric is the use of language to evoke emotions and to use those emotions to shape our attitudes and beliefs. Um, for example, there are linguistic techniques like alliteration, repetition, big boss, big brewski. Okay, you will find governments use a lot of these alliterations because it makes things sound good. So that is one part of rhetoric. Second, there's something called a rhetorical device. Suppose you want to sell, I want to sell my car, okay, which I've used for the last 10 years. So I can say second-hand car, it doesn't sound very good. Or I can turn around and say it's a pre-owned car. A pre-owned car, and some people like to say pre-loved car. I prefer pre-owned. Pre-owned car sounds better than second-hand car. Okay, so that pre-owned car is a euphemism for second-hand car. It makes something which is not so good to say sound better. For example, there is a word called a phrase called waterboarding. Okay, if I ask several of you what is waterboarding, many of you might turn around and say that maybe it sounds like a water sport and sounds very good. Actually, waterboarding is a torture technique invented by the Americans, and all the terror suspects, from 9/11, from that time onwards, all the terror suspects who were put into Guantanamo Bay, which is where they used to interrogate these guys, they used to use torture on many of them. It's a torture technique. If you've been watching OTT shows, you would have seen it in quite a few places. You'll see a guy being placed on an incline, a plank, and then the guy's face being covered with a cloth, and water is poured into his face, which that water will go through his nose, and basically he will be drowning. His lungs will be drowning. Okay, that is the same as if you were to drown in the sea or in the river. Okay, the experience that you have of drowning, that's the same when somebody sits and pours water over your nose. It's absolutely the same thing. But when they turn around and say, hey, what we are doing is waterboarding, okay, we use waterboarding to extract information, it sounds like something very innocuous and harmless. It is not. It's again a euphemism. It makes something very bad and makes it sound good. Okay, so that's again a euphemism. Something not so good being made to sound good is an euphemism for a torture technique. Okay, so there are several rhetorical devices like that. I will not be talking about it, but you should not fall for rhetoric and rhetorical devices. You should be able to segregate appeals to emotion and devices that people using to twist or change or make you shape your attitudes or belief in different ways. You should avoid them. You have rhetorical analogies. What is that like? Refugees are like termites. Soot boot ka sarkar, ma beta ka sarkar. These are all rhetorical analyses, rhetorical definitions, which try to shape our attitude or belief without actually giving us any logical reasoning. Okay, so we need to watch out for all rhetoric, because if I want to be a critical thinker, I should not fall for rhetoric and rhetorical devices. Fallacies are basically errors in reasoning, and I'll give you a simple fallacy. You know, you love me or you hate me. I don't want to do either. I don't want to love you. I don't want to hate you. I'm indifferent. Okay, but when you are presented with, asked to choose between two options, and given only two options asked to choose, while there are other options available, it becomes a false dilemma. So saying that choose between A and B, but there is a C, D, E available, but you say, okay, you should have only noodles or fried rice. No, I don't want to have noodles. I don't want to have fried rice. I want to have roti chapati. I want to have pav bhaji. I want to have something else. Okay, vada pav, whatever. I want to have many other things. I don't necessarily want this, what do you call, what did I say? Yeah, noodles or fried rice. Okay, so that's a false dilemma. So very often people, we are given that after 9/11 in the US, okay, after the Twin Towers were attacked, George Bush gave a speech to his parliaments, his both the houses that they have, the Senate, and I think it's called something else. He gave a speech saying, after this, countries are either with us in our fight against terror, or they are with the terrorists. Okay, he said either they are with us in our fight against terrorists, or with the with the, or they are with the terrorists. Basically, he meant that every country, if they are not supporting everything that the US does in their so-called fight for terror, then they are with the terrorists. Not necessary. It's a false dilemma, because we might, as a country, we might be okay with some initiatives that the US is taking to support terror. We may not be okay with some other initiatives. That doesn't mean that we automatically are with the terrorists. Okay, that's a false dilemma. That's an example of a fallacy. Now you can do Wikipedia and you can search for fallacies, or I've written a book on some of these. You can refer to that book if you're interested. Okay, but that's a fallacy. A cognitive bias is an error in judgment. It's okay. So I will be discussing a couple of cognitive bias at the end. So I will tell you when I come to that. Right. So we will be discussing, basically, I'll give you a couple of examples, clear thinking communication. I'll give you a couple of examples of cognitive biases, and we will discuss logical reasoning in some depth, little depth, because that's very central to critical thinking. Apart from the critical thinking framework, logical reasoning is central to critical thinking. Okay. So what can go wrong with clear thinking and communication? Okay, the first is ambiguity. Meena does not use glasses. Okay, this is called semantic ambiguity, because the word glasses has two meanings. It can be our reading glasses, or it can be the glasses from which we drink. Okay, so it could be that. That is semantic ambiguity. Then you have something called there is a man in the bed next to me. Okay, now this is called syntactic ambiguity. The way the sentence is constructed leads to more than one meaning. Okay, the question is there a man in the same bed next to me, or is there another bed next to me in which there's a man? Okay, so that is syntactic ambiguity. Then the third is called grouping ambiguity, where we say drivers make more money than doctors. Does it mean that a driver makes more money than doctors? It could be interpreted that way. Or it could be that all the drivers taken together make more money than all the doctors taken together. There are obviously many more drivers in the world than there are doctors. So it's conceivable that if you take the income of all the drivers in the world, it will probably be more than all the income of the doctors. But since it is not clarified, this gives rise to ambiguity. It's called a grouping ambiguity. So this is one problem that interferes with clear thinking communication. The second is use of relative words. Good, better, best, great. Suppose I were to ask you as a group, please tell me, I'll give you names of two people, the greatest leaders in the world. Okay. So let's say leader one and leader two. So you will have a bunch of people who will say leader one is great, another bunch of people who will say leader two is great. Okay, now if I go to the bunch of people who say leader one is great, and tell me why do you think he is the great or greatest? Okay, they will give me reason ABC. When I pick up person one, then I go and pick up person two and say, tell me why do you think leader one is the greatest or great? So that person will give me reasons XYZ, completely different from reason ABC. They'll give reason XYZ. Okay, the problem is the first person thinks that some qualities make a person great, another person thinks other qualities make a person great. So when we Okay. And unless we agree how to measure or how we are going to measure, first we have to define what is great, because great is also a vague term. Second, great, great, greater, greatest, we also need to define how are we going to measure greatness. Okay. Unless we agree on these two things, there is no way that we can have a critical thinking discussion. You can sit across a cup of coffee, or you can sit across bhel puri and chaat and have discussion for 5 hours. Okay. But it's a meaningless discussion unless you first define how you're going to measure and agree on those terms of measurements. And second, unless you define what great means. Okay. Unless you define and how you're going to measure that, it's a meaningless discussion. Good. Most of our discussions around politics and political leaders is like that. We use vague terms and relative terms without defining, as a result of which we're not doing any critical thinking. We are just, I'm blasting my opinions, you're blasting your opinions. Okay. That's exactly what happens. Then here, for example, and there are vague terms and places, like I said, great, leader, patriot, sedition, performer, charmer. All these are vague terms and places. The meanings are vague. It means different things to different people, right? So unless we agree on the definition of the word, it's a pointless to discuss it. If you want to do critical thinking, define how you're going to measure and what is the meaning of the word when you're using words like this before you get into a discussion. Otherwise, it's a complete waste of time. So that is what I mean when I say clarity in thinking and communication. This is required if you want to become good critical thinkers. By the way, it's very tough. Don't try and all the people nod and don't try and convince them. It's not going to happen. But just be clear that when you're thinking for yourself, you need to be clear about these. Okay. So they are vague due to meaning, so which is why we need to uh, uh, define those terms. Now, in serious discussions, it's very important to define those terms, because otherwise the consequences can be very serious. Okay, when you're doing serious issues. Larry Silverstein was the person who owned the Twin Towers at the time of the terror attacks in the US. There were bomb attacks. There were two planes which came and bombed the Twin Towers, one after the other. First, one plane came and hit a tower. 10 minutes later, another plane came and hit the second tower. Right. So the Twin Towers went down, and Larry Silverstein was a person who owned them. Larry Silverstein had actually insured those towers against terror attacks. He had insured them. Okay, he had insured them for $3.5 billion each. So after the Twin Towers attack happened and both the towers collapsed, he went to the insurance company and he said, "Look, you owe me $7 billion." Okay, because there were two occurrences of a terror attack. The insurance was $3.5 billion for per occurrence of a terror attack. He said there were two occurrences of a terror attack. Okay, so you have to give me $7 billion. Insurance company said no. There's only one occurrence of a terror attack over a period of 10 minutes. What had happened was, in their insurance, they had not defined what constitutes an occurrence, what an occurrence meant. Okay, so if they had bothered to define what an occurrence means in the context of that insurance proposal, okay, then they wouldn't have had the dispute. So it's always important to define terms in anything of consequence. Any agreements you make, any agreements you sign, anything that you sign, always look very carefully at the terms of the agreement before you sign them. Okay, because otherwise it can lead to various kinds of interpretation. This case, of course, went to court, and it went to a jury. The jury gave them $7 billion. Okay, so Larry Sylvester won initially. Insurance company appealed, and then again they won, but he didn't get $7 billion. He got $5 billion. Then Larry Silverstein took it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case, which means you are left with $5 billion. Okay, if they had bothered to define either of them what a event occurrence constituted, obviously there would have been greater clarity. Okay, let's get into now logical reasoning. So clear thinking and communication, relative terms, vague terms. Okay, always define and clarify before you get into any discussion. Now, let's look at this. Okay, we are doing reasoning all the time. All the time, we are sitting and saying, I believe I should choose Institute X for MBA. I presume some of you will want to do an MBA if you're an undergrads. Okay, you believe I should choose Institute X for MBA because, and you'll have reason one, two, three. If I'm in business and I have a garment factory, let's say, I say that I should set up a garment factory in Vietnam because I will have reasons one, two, three. I'm using logic. I'm giving reasoning. I'm not sitting and saying, I believe I should choose Institute X for an MBA because the alignment of the planets right now indicates that's the best thing I should do. Or that my emotions currently tell me that, I don't like India emotionally, it doesn't sound right. Numerologically, it doesn't add up. So let me go set it Vietnam because it looks like that, right? No, I'm using logic. I'm giving solid reasons for why I should do something which are rational and relatable to us in a solid evidential manner. Okay. So where will you be using logical reasoning in academics? If you're writing any analytical and argumentative essays, okay, whatever your subjects are, you will be sitting and doing you'll need logical reasoning. Research projects, again, critical thinking is in part of critical thinking. You will need to apply logic. Any reports, all kinds of academic writing, you need logical reasoning. Group discussions, personal interviews, you need to be logical. Again, critical thinking. Within critical thinking, you have to be logical. If you're being logical, you're doing critical thinking. Okay. At work, especially if you're a manager or supervisor, all the time you have to be logical. Any major decisions you make in life, excepting maybe who your spouse is going to be, I don't know whether you're going to use logic out there, but otherwise any major decision that we make in life should be founded on logic. Okay, so what is logic? Logic is the study of correct reasoning, especially regarding making inferences. But speaking very broadly, it means the logic is the analysis and appraisal of arguments. What I gave you just now here is an argument. I believe I should choose Institute X for MBA because reason one, two, three. In logic, it's called an argument. An argument, the way we are using the term argument, is not a fight among two people, is not a quarrel, is not a dispute. Okay. It basically means that I am making a claim and I'm supporting with reasons. It's called an argument. Okay. Reasoning is built using arguments, and we are reasoning all the time. Okay. When we say that we should do this because, or it's a right decision because, that's a good job because, and we follow it up with reasons, all that is logical reasoning. Okay. So let's look at the vocabulary of logical reasoning. There are three terms that we need to learn when we are talking of logical reasoning. The first is a claim. A claim is nothing but it's a belief, opinion, conclusion. X is a great college is a claim. Y is a correct politician is a claim. God exists is a claim. They're all claims. Okay. Then we look at a premise. A premise is a reason offered to support the claim. I believe X is a corrupt politician because he was caught on camera accepting large sums of money before he gave a decision or before he did something. Okay. So argument, I believe X is a corrupt politician because he was caught on camera accepting large sums of money. So an argument is a claim plus premise. We look at something simpler, but logical reasoning is all about arguments. Okay. So claims, God exists is a claim, XYZ is a corrupt politician is a claim, this college, HR college is a great college is a claim. Okay. All these are claims. Now, an argument is, as I said, a claim supported by premises. Okay. Now here I'm saying party X is the right choice for the country because they will help better the country's economy. Okay. It's an argument. In this, the claim is party X is the right choice for the country, and the premise is they will help better the country's economy. Taken together, it's an argument. Party X is the right choice for the country because they will help better the country's economy. Taken together, it's an argument. Okay. Or let's look at this. I say that you must exercise every day because it will keep you in good health lifelong. It's an argument. In this argument, the claim is you must exercise every day, and the premise is the reason for why I'm saying you should exercise every day is because it will keep you in good health lifelong. Okay. Now, here is one more. It says that given that petrol prices will rise and the housing market will collapse, will continue to slump, India will surely fall into a recession. Okay. In this argument, it is an argument. The claim is that India will fall into a recession, and there are two reasons given for supporting that. Petrol prices will rise and the housing market will slump. Because of these two reasons, India will fall into a recession. So as you can see, reasons are given to support a claim. An argument consists of a claim and reasons which are given to support that claim. At least the person who's giving you the argument thinks that it supports the claim. You can evaluate whether it actually supports the claim or not. Okay. So this is what it is. Now, in the workplace, for example, here's a typical argument. Okay. We need to double our marketing expenditure on brand X because, say, we lost 5% market share, then a large player is entering the market, and the retail survey shows 20% greater preference for a brand, and the market is expected to grow at 15% this year on the product category. So I'm going, if I'm the marketing manager, I'm going and telling my boss, the CEO, okay, boss, we need to double our marketing expenditure on our brand because of these reasons. We are losing market share, new competitor coming in, retailers are preferring some other brand, so we have to double our marketing expenditure. Okay. Now, when you look at this argument, we don't have the time, but if you have caught on, my claim need not be accepted. I am saying we need to double our marketing expenditure. But in all the reasons I'm providing, there is nothing which indicates that I should double. The reason that I'm giving justify an increase in marketing expenditure. They do not indicate anywhere that I should double the marketing expenditure. Okay. So maybe if you want, you capture a snapshot of this and you will turn around and see what I mean. Okay. So claims are either true or false. The purpose of an argument is to try to prove the truth of the claim. Okay. Premises can also be true or false. I will illustrate that in the subsequent slide. And premises provide varying degrees of support to the claim and sometimes do not provide any support to the claim. So let's look at a child. I'm deliberately taking a very simplistic argument. A child says, I could not come to school yesterday because I had a stomachache. These two statements together is an argument. The premise, I had a stomachache, justifies the claim why the child could not come to school yesterday. Okay. Let's say that the child further gives another argument saying, I could not come to school yesterday because I had a stomachache and I had to be hospitalized. Okay. Now, these reasons offer greater support for not coming to school yesterday than just saying I had a stomachache. Okay. So, there are strong arguments, there are weak arguments. Now, this is more convincing than this. But I don't know. Did the child truly have a stomachache? Was the child, did, he, did she or he have to be hospitalized? Okay. Sorry. And okay. And are there good reasons for not coming to school? If the reasons are true, do they justify the claim? So I have to question that. Okay. Now, if I believe that these are good reasons, I'll accept the claim that there are good reasons why the child could not come to school yesterday. But if I believe that these are not good reasons, I will not accept it. But it could be that the reasons are good, but they are lies. Okay. As an argument, it's true. They are good reasons. But the child could be telling lies, which means that I'll say, no, the premise are not valid because they are lies. So you had no reason to not come to school yesterday. Right. So when we are evaluating arguments, we realize that premises provide varying degrees of support. Just having a stomachache is offers lesser support than saying I was hospitalized. That offers greater support. Okay. So what we need to do is check whether arguments have premises with adequate support, and we also have to check whether the premise is also true. Okay. We have to do that. A politician can come and give us a statement, and it's a good argument, okay, for doing something. You should give up your gas subsidy because blah, 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 blah. We are given reasons. But we have to check one, do the reasons support the claim that you should give up gas subsidy? And second, we have to check whether the reasons that are being stated are actually true or not. Okay. Before we can conclude that, yes, the claim is adequately supported and that you agree with the claim. Right. Then, as part of this, so this is an argument. I've come to an argument, but how do I first come to make an inference? How do I come to a conclusion? Okay. So let's say that, okay, a lot of this stuff I'd be doing interactively, but obviously we can't do it interactively. Let's say that I were to ask this, due to higher carbon dioxide emissions and increased atmospheric particulates, what will happen? Typically, when Okay, I said these are the two things which are happening. What conclusion can you draw from this? Typically, when I do it in either in a corporate environment or in a classroom environment, some people will turn around and say pollution will increase, green gases will increase, etc., etc. Okay, but the conclusion I have drawn out here is global temperatures will rise. So when I give you these two reasons and I ask you, you will may come to a different conclusion and I'll come to a different conclusion. But the point is, I come to an inference based on facts, based on some reasons. Based on these two reasons, I come to this conclusion. You see somebody, they're not talking, and they're also looking very moody. You will say they must have had a fight. Based on facts, what you observe, you come to a conclusion. Okay. I'll turn around and say, that person had a fight. You'll ask me, why do you think he or she had a fight? I'll say, look, they're very serious, they're very grim. And second, look, there are some injuries on the hand. Looks like they had a fist fight or some fight. So I'll give you those two reasons. So first, based on the my observations, I come to a conclusion. And then when I share that conclusion with you and you ask me why, I share with you those two observations. The process of coming to a conclusion based on some data is called making an inference. But when I'm explaining it back to you, my inference, it becomes a claim, and my observations become the premises. Okay. Now, this is also an argument. I can present an argument like this also. Okay. So let's say X works hard, X is good at math. Therefore, okay, you may come to a conclusion he will excel in maths, he will excel in something, etc. You will come to a set of conclusion. I may come to a conclusion, therefore, X will do well in CAT and get entrance in a top IIM. Before I put this up, your mind would have been arriving at various conclusions, but I have something else in mind. This conclusion, right? But the fact is, both of us are arriving at conclusion based on data. Okay. Now the question is this: if I'm presenting it, okay, I'll come back to this. Sorry, and this slide will just remember this slide. I'll come back to it. Remember the fact that based on the same data, we arrived at two different conclusions. Okay. Now I'll come back to that. I'll demonstrate to you. What we need to understand is there are different argument types. Okay. There are many different types of arguments, and we will discuss only one type of argument, which is a deductive argument today. Okay. So I am saying that lockdowns contain the spread of the virus. It reduces stress on hospital, and lockdowns keep people safe till a cure or a vaccine is available. Therefore, lockdowns are essential during a pandemic. So taking P1, P2, P3, these three premises, I conclude that lockdowns are justified during a pandemic. Okay. Now, you can ask me, as let's say that you are the Prime Minister and I'm the Health Minister, and I'll come and tell you, sir, we should have a lockdown during the pandemic. So you'll ask me why. You're the Prime Minister, why do you say we should have a lockdown? So I'll tell you, sir, we should have a lockdown because lockdowns contain the spread of the virus, reduce the stress on the hospital, it keeps people safe till a cure or vaccine is available. So if you look at it in the first place, I am convinced about lockdowns essential based on these three reasons, and I'm recommending to you saying that, okay, have a lockdown, and you ask me why you should have a lockdown, I'm stating the same three reasons as reasons for justifying the lockdown. Okay. So in this case, I did P1, P2, P3. There's a claim. I came to a conclusion. Second is the conclusion is supported by these three premises. Okay. So when we look at arguments, these are all supporting the claim that they're lockdowns. We should not look at only supporting evidence. We should also look down what are the negatives of that conclusion. What are the implications? Okay. So contra premise, if you have a lockdown, it will destroy jobs. Okay. So that's a contra premise. That contradicts the conclusion that lockdowns are essential. It says it will destroy jobs. Contra premises weaken the claim. The claim here is lockdowns are essential during a pandemic, right? So we should always look at contra premises as well whenever we are looking at any argument. Always look at reasons why your conclusion could be wrong, what somebody else would say why your conclusion is weak. Look at both ends, and then you arrive at a balanced conclusion. Okay. Not considering contra premise, falling trap called the confirming evidence trap. If you want, you can look it up, but it's called the confirming evidence trap. Okay. So now my question would be that I said I'll come back to that. If you want to convince somebody about something, let's say that you want to convince your parents to buy you a car, you can turn around and say that, look, roads are very crowded and bikes, there are so many bike accidents, so many people have died, okay, and something else is happening. So as you're talking, your parents may come to a conclusion, oh, the college is too far. Maybe I need to put them in a college which is closer by. Oh, the city is too dangerous. Let me put them in somebody else. So you want to lead to say that they should buy you a car, but they have already come to a different conclusion, right? So after that, if you turn around and say that no, I actually wanted a car, that's why I'm telling you all this. They have come to a conclusion that saying that they should put you in a hostel or put you in a city somewhere. You have created dissonance, right? So whenever you want to convince somebody, it's always better to give the claim and then give the arguments one after the other. Don't try to say reason one, reason two, reason three, therefore this. Don't say accidents, the crowded roads, etc. Therefore you have to get me a car. They say that please get me a car because of this is crowded, bikes have accidents, etc. etc. Right? It's always good to present it in this manner. Okay, so I'm going to skip this. Uh, Arguments are layered. Okay, no arguments are very simple. They can be very complex. I will show you a complex argument. Okay, here is, suppose I'm saying that unregulated development of AI can be dangerous. First, I give you reason one: many safety risks. It can lead to bias. It may lead to misuse and exploitation. These are three reasons I'm giving you why I'm saying AI development should not be unregulated. But if I tell you that, you'll say, hey, why are you saying safety risks? Okay. So I have to justify, I have to give you an example of why it's a safety risk. Okay. So I'll tell you Microsoft AI chatbots rapidly turned into a racist. So I give you evidence to support each of those premises. Okay. So when you are evaluating arguments, if somebody tells you why you should do something, or you're telling somebody why you should do something, ask yourself these three questions. Do the premises support the claim? Are the premises true? And whether, when all the premises taken together, do they provide adequate grounds to believe the claim to be true? So this is the way to evaluate any argument. Okay, any reasoning given to you. Do the premises support the claim? Are they relevant? Are they really true? And when all the premises are taken, that's, I've told you that you should do this because reason 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you should say reason one, does it support the claim? Reason two, does it support the claim? Then you can ask reason one, is it really true? Reason two, is it true? And after that, you can say, okay, now all these are the reasons which are there. Is it good enough for me to believe the claim? Do I believe what you're asking me to do? Okay. So that's the way to evaluate arguments. Now, I think we have considered two things. We have considered how to think critically about an issue, which is the critical thinking framework. We looked at clear thinking in communication, and we have looked at logical reasoning, essentially one type of argument, which is that you're making a claim supported by premises. If you want to convince, if you want to be convinced about doing something, ask for the reasons why you should believe something or why you should do something, and see whether the reasons support the claim and whether the reasons are backed by evidence. Okay, so these two things, if you do, you'll be well on your way to critical thinking. I think our time is up. Nami, should I stop? Yeah, it's a vast subject. I can go on, but it's a vast subject. I think we said 1 hour, so let me stop in 1 hour. And we have discussed three crucial concepts. So, do you have any questions?
Thank you, sir. Indeed, in a rapidly evolving digital landscape, the ability to think critically is more crucial than ever. Now, I request everyone to ask the question and answers in the chat box, or if anyone wants to speak, can raise their hands.
I better if you speak, because I am old timer. I'm not very good at chat. Let me figure out where is chat first. Yeah, okay. I see the chat box.
Sir, we'll read it out for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see no questions, so I presume that everything is so clear there are no questions. Okay. So shall we wind up? How do we improve our skills? Okay. So you can read books which are there. Okay. You can pick up a book on critical thinking and read them. There are courses online, but honestly, all of many of these courses are very academic. I have been going to them, and I will not recommend it because you will learn something, but again, it will be very academic. Guys will talk about deductive arguments, true sound arguments, valid arguments, but how to translate it back into reality is something that very few of these guys touch. I don't know of anybody who touches it. It's because I haven't found any book that I am writing a book now, because all of them are very academic. They don't tell you how to translate in reality. So you can learn about it and um, learn about the subject. You will find some books. Wikipedia is a good source of reference. Basically, the critical thinking framework you may not see anywhere, but logical reasoning you will see it somewhere in a few places. So you can pick those up. How do I address the challenge of misinformation and fake news? Basically, you check the credibility. When I say credibility, you see a news item, okay? You basically ask, is the claim credible? Suppose somebody comes and says, come to me, I'll teach you meditation, and after 2 months of meditation, you can levitate. Now we know levitation is going against gravity, okay? We know it's not possible, right? So the claim itself is incredible. That is one. Second, you turn around and check, is the information credible? So is the information credible? Basically, is the source credible, right? If it comes from certain sources, you might believe it's credible. From other sources, it is not credible. And in today's age, you go and check, is it fake news? Anything that you see sounds incredible, go and check with the fake news, because there are websites dedicating to busting fake news. So it makes sense to go and check. Don't be carried away by blogs, okay? Because blogs these days, they construct blogs which have depth, which has a lot of content, lot of it, some truth, but major untruths also buried in that. Don't trust Google search, because there are companies which do what is called reputation management. If there is something bad that happens to me, something in my office, or something that I want to bury, I will create a lot of good items out there and do search engine optimization so that all the good things come up and what is bad goes into page 3 or page 4. Nobody searches page 3 or page 4 in Google search. Okay. Typically, we go away after page 1 or 2. So all I need to do is whatever is bad about something goes to page 3 or page 4. I keep all the good things out there when I do a search. So basically, you need to exercise judicious acceptance. Okay. Always check fake news, always check credibility of the source. What partnerships or collaborations? I don't know what you mean here. Do you think a holistic curriculum development? I don't know what you mean by partnerships. If it's for colleges, they should obviously have a course in critical thinking. If it's for yourself, if you just follow the two things that I've told you today, you'll be well on your way to critical thinking. Use clear thinking communication, check assumptions, implications, and point of view. Then third, logical reasoning. Fourth, we just said check credibility of claims. You'll be well on your way to critical thinking. How to score well in critical reasoning sections of MBA exams. Okay. Now, GMAT has a critical thinking section. I don't know whether CAT has the same type of critical think section. The logical reasoning section in CAT is largely numerical. It has got nothing to do with the logical reasoning inductive arguments that are presented. But if you're going to GMAT or GRE, what I gave you today, claim supported by reasons, that is what you need to understand. Assumptions is what you need to understand. Okay. So those are things. So for GMAT, GRE, it applies the concepts we discussed. For CAT, I'm not sure whether it applies, whether they really check on this. But if you get through the initial rounds, some of the institutes have what they call the written analysis. Okay. In written analysis, this is what they'll check you for, your logical reasoning. Okay. So in the second round, what we discussed today comes very much into play. but not in the first round. I'm not so. I don't recall. It's a long time since I've done CAT. I've not checked CAT, but I don't think it is. Okay. How do we cultivate critical thinking in our daily life? Whenever you see, one attitude you can maintain is, before you adopt a belief, any belief or any conclusion, say that I will be led only by evidence. Okay. Be willing to change your belief based on evidence. That's the only way to navigate. If you go and form a belief by any chance, any other way, you get into the trap of confirmation bias. So take an attitude that you will be led by evidence, and if the evidence changes, you're willing to change your belief. Okay. I think I've answered all of them. Yeah. Okay.
Thank
So
you,
shall
sir.
we wrap up? Yeah.
Yeah, sir.
Okay.
Today's session was extremely informative and practical. We thank you, sir, for helping us understand that critical thinking is not just a skill, it's a mindset that will empower us to navigate the digital landscape with confidence. We are sure that your guidance will bring a great impact in our lives.
We would like to thank our principal in charge, Dr. Pooja Ramchandani ma'am, our teachers, Professor Tanvi ma'am and Professor Trisha ma'am, and all our participants. Thank you, Team GDC, for organizing this insightful webinar. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope you had a great learning experience today. We hope to see you all in our next sessions. Team GDC signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you all. Yeah. Bye bye. Good luck to all of you.
Bye, sir.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.